Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Pasternak, founder and chair of Diabetes Hope Foundation, and I'm really excited to welcome you all tonight to part 2 of our 4-part series, Transition to Post-Secondary, The New Reality. Before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors for this evening, the Aubrey and Marla Down Foundation, Omnipod, Jeremy and Judith Friedman Foundation, and our esteemed board of directors. Tonight, I'm thrilled to be co-hosting this evening with our lovely Alex Colley. So Alex, let's begin.
Thank you, Barbara. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex, Program Director with Diabetes Hope Foundation. Barbara and I will be leading tonight's discussion with 4 of our alumni panelists who will share with you their transition journey during COVID-19.
Post-secondary is a new and exciting time in life. It should be. It requires a lot of planning by checking out new schools, talking to friends and family, and putting together a plan of what your life is going to look like for the next 4 years. To add even more planning, transitioning to adult diabetes care is another responsibility that needs a check off.
Who would have thought that COVID-19 would prevent all of the planning and all the anticipation of this transition to the next chapter of your life? COVID adds another level of stress to this already stressful and exciting time. Sudden disruption of student life and academics was brought on by COVID-19 and has led to much uncertainty among students and families.
Let's go back a few months when life was the only normal we knew. Many of you were getting ready to plan and celebrate your final year of post-secondary, your last day of high school, preparing to celebrate for prom and after parties, planning to move away to your new school of choice, and to join on your first year's rituals while settling into dorm and university life. Looking back, no one would have ever guessed what was about to hit, but COVID did, and it hit hard. Unfortunately, spoiling all the well-thought-out plans for university, and so sadly missing out on so many special occasions and celebrations.
This has led to a serious case of FOMO, fear of missing out. How is this generation addressing these very important issues? Many students are thinking about taking a gap year so they won't miss out on their first year experience. But most post-secondary institutions are planning for a virtual fall term and finding ways to enrich the college and university experience. Many of the schools are still trying to find fun and creative ways to engage the students virtually to make sure that they feel as though they are not missing out on student life. There has been so much effort put in by the school staff to ensure that these virtual programs are made to feel like you're still having that in-person experience.
COVID has forced us all to a life that relies mainly on virtual interactions, especially students for all ages. How the virtual world, albeit from many different platforms, brings us all together. Virtual learning, virtual Zoom and house parties, virtual medical appointments, and many more.
Tonight, we have 4 panelists sharing 4 unique experiences and how they are managing their post-secondary transition during COVID.
So without further ado, let's hear from our panelists tonight. Natasha, Emerson, Jordan, and Scotia.
Natasha, sorry, Barbara, Natasha, let's start with you.
That's correct.
Hi everyone, my name is Natasha. I'm about a week away from graduating from grade 12 virtually, which is exciting. And I'm planning to attend Queen's University in the fall for kinesiology and playing field hockey there.
Exciting. Jordan, how about you?
Hey everyone, my name is Jordan. I'm from Nova Scotia. I was a recipient back in 2018, and that led me towards graduating the Nova Scotia Community College this year, and I'm going off to Cape Breton University for psychology in the fall.
Also exciting. Emerson.
Hi everyone, I'm Emerson. I received my scholarship last year, and I'm moving into my 2nd year of nursing at Ryerson.
Exciting times in nursing, for sure, with everything that's going on. Scotia.
Hey, hi everybody. I received my scholarship in 2015. Last April, I graduated from Trent University with a biology degree, and I took a gap year this year, and in this September, I'm going to be studying fisheries and aquaculture in Nanaimo.
Making a big jump. So thank you again to all 4 of you for sharing your journey with us tonight.
Transition from high school to post-secondary is an incredible milestone in the life of young adults living with diabetes. Transition can be overwhelming for both teens and parents as they try to balance the financial, emotional, and practical elements of going away to college and university and transitioning to adult diabetes care.
So this coming year, it's going to look very different than the year that has just passed. So to our panelists, how have you adjusted your expectations as you move into an unknown experience ahead? Emerson, let's start with you on that question.
I think I've realized that this year is going to be a lot more independent. I won't be living on campus this year. I'm going to be staying at home. So knowing that I won't have the same support from my fellow students to do work with and finding different ways to do things online.
Making that virtual transition will be a challenge, but it's a good challenge maybe. Natasha.
I think my expectations have shifted a bit in terms of collectively coming together as a class. So obviously we won't be able to meet each other all in the fall and be together, but I think that'll just bring us closer in for the years to come.
Interesting. Scotia.
A lot of my program is really hands-on. So we have been assured that we'll still get the same great hands-on experience. I'm not exactly sure what that will look like yet, so that's something I'm really curious about, but excited to learn more about and see where it goes.
Many universities are trying to do updates as they come. And Jordan.
Yes, for sure. So my expectations have shifted quite a bit. Like I said, I'm transitioning into a new school in the fall. So that being said, I'm going to be doing all my studies at home instead of, potentially going off to the school. We're going to have to do a lot of communication to get our assignments done where we wouldn't be able to be together to begin with. It's going to be a lot different, but there's always ways around the challenges and, you just have to problem solve, I guess.
Oh, it sounds like you guys are all up for the challenge. That's good. Barbara.
Our panelists this evening all have something in common. Many of them are experiencing and trying to navigate their first year of their transition, whether transitioning to their first year university or transitioning to a virtual school year or just moving to a new province. This is quite amazing to navigate, especially during these times.
So Natasha, starting with you, how did COVID affect you and your final year of high school specifically?
So my high school is a bit different than most of the ones in my area. In grade 12, you have to board at the school. So I was the head of my house and living in residence. It was such an amazing year. And all of a sudden after the March break, we were told you can't come back. So most students are worried about their lockers and all of us are worried about our full room. So I guess just we didn't have that final third kind of term of high school that we were looking forward to, being on campus all together. Yeah.
Now, have you had the chance to go back and collect all your things in that kind of sense?
Yeah, I moved out, I think 2 weeks ago. They sent out a whole form and people got to find ways to come in at certain times, but a lot of the international students haven't had a chance to come back yet and their rooms are being packed up for them. So I can't even imagine how that must feel.
That could be very stressful. How have you been managing with that stress of having to pack up so quickly and move out and not be able to see your friends at the end?
I think just making time to FaceTime people and set up group kind of Zoom meetings like we're doing here and just connect with them because we're all used to 70 girls living in the house together, almost like a big family. So just maintaining that connection, trying to set up house meetings, house council meetings, stuff like that.
Well, it sounds like that the virtual world has really been helping with keeping you all super close, even if you might not be super close in proximity. So that's really interesting. And I do want to throw it to the audience. If you have any questions for our panelists who are in different stages of transitioning, please let us know and we will bring them forward to our panelists to answer. Moving on to you, Emerson. We know that you are entering your second year of nursing at Ryerson. How has COVID affected you and your placement as well as your future academics?
So at the end of last year, it would have been, I didn't actually get the opportunity to go to my placement because that hospital board decided that they weren't going to bring in any students. So I missed out on that opportunity to practice my skills in a hands-on setting with actual patients. And then moving forward, we haven't been told if we will still get to continue placement in the fall. They said that they're working on different ways to have labs. And I know that they were making gaming simulations that we completed online. So almost like choose your path kind of versions. So maybe more things like that, virtual interactive ways that we can do it, but it's definitely a huge change not having that hands-on, which Ryerson is really big on.
Yeah, having the hands-on experience is definitely a big part, especially of the nursing program. Now, Emerson, have you heard of any extensions towards your program with not being able to complete your placement at the beginning of, well, I guess more towards the end of your term?
They haven't said anything so far, but I'm assuming that if we don't get the opportunity to complete our hours in the fall, that they'll have to extend it a little bit to accommodate for those losses.
Exactly. And just as a side note of information, as Barbara and I have been doing a lot of research for tonight's webinar, we did find that the co-op programs for a lot of schools, we looked at University of Toronto, Brock University, Western, I believe was another one, McMaster. Their co-op departments are still allowing students to do their work placements if it is safe for them to continue. They're also reducing the number of hours that you have to complete in order to still maintain your status as a co-op or a placement student. So I would definitely check into that for whatever school you are looking into going or currently at to make sure that you can still complete your co-op placement as scheduled. Just as a side note. Okay. Jordan, moving on to you. And since you're beginning your college university education transition for a second time, how has COVID affected your future studies with your program?
Well, just like Emerson, my work practicum was cut short. We're supposed to go on a 6-week work practicum. And unfortunately, the hands-on experience just wasn't there. Although it was a lot of stress relieved off your shoulders, you kind of want that experience to get, your skills out there, some experience. It was kind of a shame, but another thing that was really cut short was we didn't have a graduation. They're talking about having a graduation in the fall rather than this year. And, a lot of students might not be able to do that, but as long as they're trying to, they're coming up with solutions to these problems, even though it's not really the ideal situation, I guess.
You're right. Not an ideal situation for anybody.
No. Just a question to Jordan. Was there anything that was decided about your graduation? Are you going to be actually doing a virtual graduation, or was that decided?
As of right now, they're planning an actual graduation within September, October, as a lot of the restrictions are being upheld. I know I'll go to the graduation if it's available. I hope it is. It's exciting to say the least to finally get it done and over with.
So they're going to postpone it. They're going to postpone it till September or October.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, and a lot of people can gather together. Is that going to be
That's what they're thinking right now. In Nova Scotia, they're lifting all a lot of restrictions. A lot of the businesses and stuff are allowed to open up June 5th. So a lot of people are allowed to come together. So hopefully by September, October, a large group of people are going to be allowed to be together. It's just up in the air right now, but that's what we've been told as of now.
So the 10 maximum in a group doesn't follow. It won't follow. It'll be a lot more that they will accept it as a group gathering.
It's 10 people right now, but the school's been in contact saying if more restrictions are being lifted, this is the possibility that a graduation could be possible. But right now, they're going to be emailing us our diplomas. It's just
right. Yeah.
So Jordan, we have a question from the audience directed to you. So
Sure.
So one of our attendees is interested in attending college this fall. What would you say that your biggest accomplishment or legacy is that you've left at the school?
At the school, I think the most important thing I could give to somebody is let your disease be known. That was my biggest problem coming into university or college. I was always quiet about it. I didn't want to speak much about it. The most important thing I could ever tell somebody is to let it be known, let them know what a high blood sugar looks like, let them know what a low blood sugar looks like. That was my biggest accomplishment, just letting the diabetes community be known. Strive for success. You might be able to learn in a different way, you might be able to do things in a different manner, but we can get everything done. Just keep striving for your passion, keep chasing your dreams.
Great words to live by, Jordan. Thank you. And thank you to the person who submitted this question. Keep them coming. Moving on to you, Scotia. So you're just coming up a gap year and you are going to be moving back to BC to complete your education for your postgrad. Can you explain what your postgrad will look like with everything going on?
That's a bit of a mystery to me also, but it's a postgraduate diploma in fisheries and aquaculture. So a lot of that, as I said, is very hands-on, which is what attracted me to the program. Because in biology, throughout your undergrad, it's very theoretical. You do a lot of papers and stuff, but I'm really looking to get hands-on experience, especially in the industry. So what Vancouver Island University is doing is a hybrid program delivery model. So the classes that can be offered virtually are offered virtually. But the practicum courses, of which there are several in my program, are going to be modified in some way. I don't think even they know exactly how yet, but they have guaranteed that we're going to get some hands-on experience. I expect that looks like proper social distancing in workplaces, good sanitization. I guess we'll just have to see, but I'm glad that it's still going to happen.
And it's going to be a very different, I think, learning experience for everybody moving forward with the practices and the safety measures that will be going in place, especially with you, Emerson. So do you think that your course, being in nursing, you will have to learn a different side of maybe safety precautions with your curriculum?
I think the main focus of the majority of my practice class last year was infection control and the things that go along with that. So when COVID first started, before everything was shut down, we were really focusing on that and looking at how to implement it into the pandemic happening. So they might incorporate more of that into second year, just everything that's going on in the world to just really drive the importance of everything. Not sure if it'll be more theory rather than the hands-on part of it, but.
Well, it's interesting that you were learning about the infectious diseases when all of this happened. A little ironic and a little scary at the same time. But Scotia, it sounds like that you're really looking forward to your program, and I know Barbara and I look forward to hearing more about it and how successful you are out in BC.
Thanks.
And you all have expressed a little bit of the challenges that you will face, especially with the virtual learning. And many of the challenges, like I said, moving to online classes in an online environment, especially coming this fall, have initiated feelings of fear and disappointment. But let's turn that around and flip it on the positive side. What positives do you think that may come from a virtual experience? Jordan, let's start with you.
I think there's a lot of positives that might come with it. A sense of independence. Just to get up, focus on your own time, do your assignments on your own time, follow a strict schedule. I think that's very important to relate it to the work schedule that might be ahead, post your schooling experience. With me, that was my biggest problem, to get a hold of a schedule, to stick with a strict schedule. I think that's going to be very important and beneficial to once you finally get a job with your course, to be able to finally say you did this before, you can do this now, and just follow through with what you've done within the past.
Following through, that's again a really good takeaway. And Natasha, how about you?
I think self-regulation is something I always hear people talking about learning from residents in first year. And although we might not have that experience, I think that online school gives you that same opportunity to learn self-regulation because you don't have that same kind of guidance over you or rules kind of set on you. And sorry about my light, the trees are blowing a lot.
No problem. I know the feeling. Emerson, how about you with the virtual learning? I know that you kind of switched halfway through from being in class and not virtual to all of a sudden being virtual.
So kind of building on what Natasha and Jordan have said, it's been a lot of self-regulation and just making sure that I'm staying up to date, especially because mine just switched so quickly. I don't think any of the profs really knew how to navigate through that. So a lot of them were like, okay, just take this and do it on your own. So that was a big change because we were going from having everything taught to us in person, able to ask questions on the spot, to now having to do the work on our own and then find a time that works for the prof to then ask our questions. Learning how to communicate with profs virtually was definitely a lot different than in person. Making sure that you're wording everything properly so that you get the proper response you need. There were a lot of changes that came, but I think overall it's still a good experience, even though it's not the best circumstances.
You're right, not the best circumstances, but I think a lot of people are expanding on their communication skills, with communication being so important and not being able to talk to your professors in person. And Emerson, you're completely right with having to reach out to your professors in a way that makes sense to them and that you get the best answer that you were looking for. So thank you for sharing that insight. Scotia.
I think it will really help us to improve our resilience, because doing these online classes is going to be hard and it's going to be different. And you definitely grow from every single experience. Therefore, this is just another experience that we can grow from and learn from. Building off what Emerson said, we are in the digital age. So by learning how to communicate digitally and learn digitally, it'll really help us moving forward, I think.
You're right. We are completely in a digital age. And it's weird because in a sense, all the virtual world has brought such a large world so much closer together. And that's become so important, especially now with not being able to be with our friends and family, is that we are able to connect. So I know three of you, and Jordan can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of you play sports and were involved in your sports and athletics within your university, even high school. So can you each talk a little bit about your experiences and how that will change moving forward? Natasha, we'll start with you on that one.
So I've played competitive field hockey since like grade 2. I started because I couldn't skate for my life. So I've grown up playing the sport, competed at nationals, and this whole pandemic has changed that because obviously nationals are canceled this summer, which brought a lot of disappointment, I think, especially to the graduating girls, because it's our kind of like last time to play together and compete against the different provinces. I think going into university, my future coaches at Queen's have been really helpful communicating training schedules and just reaching out to me and checking in on me, not even in a sports sense, but just how I'm doing with all this. And I don't think my first year on the team will be how I expected. But I think that everyone loves the sport so much that they're going to try to push the season later, or at least like give us an opportunity to play. So I'm not worried about that. I think it'll work.
Well, it's really good that they're so supportive of all of you and reaching out and continuing to check in on you guys, which is very important. And I have to give kudos to your coaches. That is just an amazing thing for them to do. And pushing the season back, it might be a little bit interesting. I think I heard that golf is starting in November, the Masters. I don't know, it was on the radio. Don't really pay attention, but just a little tidbit. So Jordan, do you play sports? How has sports affected you? I see the Boston Bruins poster behind you.
Yeah, so I've played basically every sport available. I played hockey, baseball, softball, everything really. These past couple of years when I went to school, I kind of took a break. I wanted to primarily focus on my studies. This year I played for the college hockey team, which is a very good experience. Got me back on the ice, got some good exercise in, but I'm just trying to primarily focus on my studies right now, get my grades up, and be the best I can be for the future.
Well, the sports will be there for you when you return. So it's really good that you're very involved with that. Scotia.
All right, so yay, sports. So growing up, I was a triathlete, and when I went to Trent, I rowed for a couple of years on the rowing team. Going to Vancouver Island University this fall, I was looking into like different clubs and sports teams to join, but now it looks like a lot of those have been put on hold, which is unfortunate. But one of the things that I really believe is very beneficial from sports is the team, and just the whole team atmosphere, being there for one another, connecting with other people. I think the team is still possible. There's still ways to connect with people without physically being there with them. Like for rowing, for example, physically being in the boat is awesome, but then off the water, you're still, making friends with your team and everything. That will be harder right now, but still possible. And I think that's a really good takeaway from sports. Like you can still exercise by yourself, but your team's always going to have your back and be there for you, even if they're not physically there.
I just want to interject for a minute. You've touched on the virtual learning part. You've touched on the sports part. How are you dealing with the inability to actually socialize with your friends and your schoolmates and even your teammates? Because it's such a huge part of university, college, all levels of education is socialization. Emerson, how are you? Are you keeping in touch with your buddies?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I live in an area where there's not a lot of houses. I'm more out in the country, so we have ways that we can still come together and still follow the social distancing protocols and still be in groups under 5. So just if it's hanging out in our cars in a field or just having a big spread out bonfire, we can still have that social aspect, and we're all really lucky to still have that interaction, and we're finding new ways that we can do things together. But it's really important because at the start it was nothing at all, and it was definitely something that I wouldn't want to go back to.
For sure. Jordan, how are you managing that part of it?
Yeah, so we've been communicating by primarily Zoom, group chats, whether it be Facebook, social media. We haven't really gotten to the in-person stage like Emerson has, but we're doing what we can with Zoom, social media. It's kind of challenging. At the beginning, when everything started taking place, we couldn't really do anything. We didn't know how to communicate. It was very challenging, but when all these social media platforms came available, made my education made it a lot easier than it was before.
That's good. Very good. Natasha, what about you?
I think when it all started, we all kind of were in a rut and just a little bit down. So we kind of checked out and lost a little bit of contact with each other. But I think the great thing about having such close teammates, as Scotia was saying, and just friends is that that they're always a text away. And even if you haven't spoken to them for maybe a week or so and you're just kind of down, you can shoot them a text or call them and they're always there for you. So I think that it was hard to not be able to see each other, but it's so easy to reconnect when we're able to see each other in person again. I think that it'll be just the same as where we left off. So
it's really good having those friendships where you can be so disconnected in a sense, but very connected at the same time. And then when we all get back together, it's like we never were apart. So that's such a good thing with social media and all these video chats.
And I just want to say, the very beginning was such a dramatic, drastic, horrible situation for everybody. Everyone was frightened. They didn't know what was going on. So I think it was probably the first month or 5 weeks until people realized the reality of what's going on. And then it's rekindling friendships and reaching out to your friends who you feel really comfortable with. Is so necessary to continue to do, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you just need those friendships to nourish your soul. So it's good that it's going on. Scotia, you can tell us.
Just speaking to what you just said, I was going to say it's interesting because I've actually connected with a couple friends who I haven't spoken to in literally years. And this has given us the opportunity and kind of the push to do that. And yeah, just the use of social media and technology has been really, really, really helpful in doing that. So yeah, there's not a lot, but there's some benefits to this whole situation because I wouldn't have talked to that friend perhaps if it wasn't over the social media. So yeah.
It's so true. I mean, it is such a funny feeling knowing that you're just not the only one. You wake up in the morning and it's another day. It's the world. It's global. And that is such a unique feeling knowing that whatever you are going through, millions are going through, but it's your unique experience. And it sounds like you're all turning it around into positives. And it's so wonderful to see. And really, it's wonderful. So congratulations. So we're just going to switch up a bit, unless you want to add any more to, your basic transition. Is there anything that you'd like to add with the emotional, the workload, the virtual learning, anything else that you'd like to add before we move on?
I kind of wanted to comment on what Jordan said about being open about your disease. I think in high school I was really closed off about it, and then moving into university, having academic accommodations, it was super helpful, and I think it's definitely something that everyone should look into during that transition.
So we often, Alex and I used to, but Alex does workshops, transition workshops. She actually goes to clinics all across Ontario, and we were doing parts of Canada talking to youth who are just ready to transition. They're in their last year of high school, and we talked all the do's and don'ts. And one of the most important thing that we always used to emphasize and stress is that you have to have a buddy. When you're in university, and especially if you're in res, you have to have a buddy, because if you're absent or silent, often drinking, going to frat parties or whatever is obviously mistaken, and some very bad things can happen. But, having a very bad low would look like you maybe had too much wine or too much whatever. So it's just having a buddy. And if that's one piece of information we can take away with that, whether it's virtual or not, it's really important to have a buddy.
Exactly. And as Barbara mentioned, when we do go to and do these transition workshops, we always say get a DDB, so a designated diabetes buddy. Whether you bring them with you to a party and they just know the signs to look out for, they're just your backup. So the designated driver, but for your diabetes. They just know what's going on. They're familiar. They have your backup supplies. It's just a really good thing to have. And we've seen a lot of mentors that come on to do these presentations with us that this is exactly what they do. So that's where I'm getting the advice from.
So it's also really important to, if we're talking about transition, is to make sure you plan your medical supplies. You have a place where you're going to buy all your medical supplies if you're moved away from home. Have you experienced any of that? For any of you panelists, have you experienced if you're transitioning physically into another city, another state or whatever, have you purchased your diabetes supplies in a different place? Was it a hard thing to organize to do that?
Natasha?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll speak because I kind of had a half transition this year, because I live right around the corner from my school, and I would come home on weekends, but at the same time I was still living away. And one of the things my parents really wanted me to understand is the independence that comes with the disease. So like next year, having to order my own supplies. So I would get like reminder texts from my parents to order them. So I guess I've had like half of an experience, but I still haven't had that full like independence of finding a pharmacy near my university to pick things up from, and stuff like that. So halfway, I guess.
Halfway. So you're halfway there. It's great.
Sorry, Barbara, but Natasha, we're going to touch on a little bit of a resource that we have that will help you with finding where to go. So stay tuned for that. But
Awesome.
Scotia, if you want to take that question.
Yeah. We're not really doing tonight. We're not doing a transition workshop. We're here just to talk about how well all four of you are managing your transition and your future transition during this very stressful time. And kudos to all of you. We're very proud of what you've done and what you continue to do, and your path looks so bright and sunshiny. So I just wanted to complete that thought. Just moving on, sorry, which is sort of a segue into this very important resource guide. This is 22 years ago, well, for 22 years, Diabetes Hope Foundation is successfully creating programs for youth who are transitioning from different parts of their life. And we felt that it was really important to create a guide to help kids who are actually planning their university and college transition. So it took us about a year and a half to put together this very in-depth guide. It's about 400 pages, and it includes how many universities? 190.
Yeah, 191 colleges and universities across Canada.
Yeah. So it features 191 universities across Canada. It lists all the closest endocrinologist, the diabetes clubs, and all the copay insurance availability, the pharmacists, and the most important part, which Alex is going to talk about, is the accessibility programs. So just a quick question. Any four of you have applied or registered for the accessibility program from your college or university? Pending.
No.
Emerson, you have?
Yeah, I had them halfway through first year mine started, and it wasn't something I'd had before, but it was definitely beneficial. So I had a note taker. So anytime I had to miss class, because I was having a lot of lows in the mornings, so I'd be late or I'd miss a portion. And so I had those notes if anything happened during class and I had to step out. And I had extra time on exams in case I ever went high or low during a test or an exam. I was allowed in a separate room. And I think the other one was if I ever need an extension due to anything that came up, they had to grant me that. So it was definitely helpful.
Yeah, the accessibility services, honestly, it's such a great tool to have in your back pocket. My thing is that it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I highly recommend to everybody who has diabetes or any other chronic illness to apply for accessibility services. Barbara and I actually spoke with an accessibility services officer at a university, and she told us that with all of this virtual learning and the sudden adjustment, that many of the students were going through mental health problems. They were really anxious, stressed, all that kind of stuff. And many of them didn't know that the accessibility services had these mental health resources available to them. So just being able to apply and have this as a tool in your back pocket can be such a benefit. As Emerson mentioned, you can get extra time on tests. You can get those extensions. You can write in a separate writing room. I had accessibility services myself, and I can't tell you how many times it saved my butt. It's less stressful, and knowing that there's a whole team of people behind you supporting you is such a great thing. So I have a question for Natasha. With you going into university this year, please tell me that you're going to apply for accessibility services, correct?
Yeah, I didn't, I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know that was an option or an availability. At my school, my high school, they had a really great program for people with learning challenges to have that happen. And I often found myself struggling with having to test my blood sugar during a test. I remember I did a chem lab once and I couldn't finish a whole station of the lab because I was testing and there was nothing I can do about it. And when I was writing the SATs, I couldn't bring my machine in because they didn't allow me. So just knowing that that's an option for university, that's definitely something I'm going to apply to now that I know.
Natasha, that's an excellent, sorry, Barbara, but Natasha, that's an excellent point about your diabetes, your CGM, all that kind of stuff, because it is considered technology. I remember in an exam that I had, they were very, very strict with the technology that you can bring in. There was a gentleman in front of me, didn't have the right calculator or something. I think he was cheating, but he got kicked out. I will never forget that. But with the accessibility services, they do allow you to bring in any medical technology that you need. And that's the benefit of writing in a separate writing room. So it's just that extra reassurance. And again, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. But Jordan, did you use these when you were in college and I guess now applying to a different school?
I did, yeah. In high school, just like Emerson, I had extra time on tests. They let me write in a separate room just to keep an extra eye on me in case my blood sugar went high, went low. With college and university, my teachers were very understanding. The team at the hospital, like the diabetic clinic, they were very like in touch with my teachers, very in touch like the student services. Like they all knew the information, they knew what to do in case of a situation happened. They handled it very well, and I was very thankful for everyone that was involved in that process.
100%. Now, Scotia, when you move out to BC, is this something that you'll look into even for your post-grad?
Yeah, I think it is. To be honest, I also didn't know all the things that were available through the accessibility services for diabetics in particular. So yeah, I think I will now that I know more about it.
Well, check out the transition guide because there's a whole chapter for BC. And Natasha, you're going to Queens?
Queens, yeah.
Queens. So really interesting as well. Some of the additional supports, and Barbara had mentioned this, there are diabetes clubs on campus. And we were actually fortunate enough to partner with majority of them and create the Hope Connects on Campus program. This is actually where I reconnected with Emerson last year at the Ryerson Hope Connects on Campus program, just before all this crazy quarantine happened. But it's where Diabetes Hope Foundation comes out to the schools. We give a presentation on transition. We talk about accessibility services, just reiterating the fact that they are available to you, and just have a really fun conversation about what's currently going on. We bring in guest speakers, and you just connect with other people who have diabetes and who can relate to you. So it's a really good club to look into, and I know Queens has one. We have been in touch with them, so that's really, really good. As a side note.
Yeah, the other part of the Hope Connects, I'm just adding on to that, is we provide mentorship matchup. So it's really been a very popular tool. And I think when you first all received your scholarships, you probably all got a mentor, or it was offered to you. Is that correct? Was many of you? No? Yes?
I remember matching Emerson last year.
Yeah. So
Natasha, I'll be in touch.
Yeah, my scholarship was like 2 days ago, so probably.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's really a wonderful opportunity to usually we match the mentors with the same university or college they're going to, or taking very similar courses of interest. And we've had tremendous success with hundreds and hundreds of matches over the last many, many years. So if anyone out there in the virtual world out there listening who needs a mentor or a buddy, please don't hesitate to log on to Diabetes Hope Foundation under Mentorship Program, and boom, put your information in, and within 24 hours, you'll be matched.
Yes, so we ask you a few questions because I do take a lot of pride in matching you specifically to what you want. This is what the mentorship program is about. We really want to make sure that your mentor is there to help you. So I match you either based on program that you're taking in school, or by college universities. So when all this is over, you guys can actually meet on campus. But it's a really fun program. I know Emerson and Scotia, and I think Jordan are all transitioning to be mentors this year, which is really exciting. And Natasha, I don't know who you'll get. I haven't matched you yet, but like I said, I will be reaching out very soon. But it's a very quick process. It's a lot of fun. Our mentors and mentees stay friends for a long time after. And we've just had some really great success stories with the mentorship program. So thank you to all of those of you who have volunteered in the program. We honestly could not do this without you.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Well, this is our last 10 minutes, I think, before we wrap it up. Alex, are there any last words or questions you have up your sleeve?
I do. I have a few more up my sleeve. I always have some. But as Barbara mentioned, we're just getting into the last little bit of our webinar tonight. So to our panelists, what are some takeaways, advice, tips that you would leave to our audience who are transitioning or who are a part of the life of somebody in this transition stage to post-secondary? So Scotia, let's start with you on that one.
One thing I want to talk about, I guess, is I mentioned this when I was speaking with you two earlier on a planning webinar, is control and feeling like you're in control of things. Right now, I know a lot of us feel the same way, where we don't have control of many aspects of our life. One of those things being the course delivery for next year, the virtual learning. And I think diabetics struggle especially hard with that because our life revolves around control. We literally need to control our bodies to stay alive more than other people do. So giving up that control and feeling like you don't have that anymore can be extremely stressful for us. So I've kind of been looking at it as trying to take a step back and go with the flow more, and maybe directing that control into other aspects of your life other than school. So maybe you can control a new hobby, a new exercise type thing, or take up a new skill. So just kind of like focus that energy on something else, because we can't change the reality right now. And that can be hard for us, but it's, again, a learning experience.
Very good.
Those are great points, Scotia. Really focusing on and putting something else in control that you can control yourself when the world seems to be a little bit out of control. So a great point. Jordan, what are your takeaways, tips, and advice that you would leave with the audience?
For sure. So my advice would be to be resilient. Just like was previously mentioned with control, some days, your blood sugar might be in control. Some days, it could be off due to stress, could be off due to, any other activity that might be going into your life. With school, it comes with stress. Your blood sugar might take a little bit to get under control, but if with resiliency, you're going to be able to get that under control. You're going to be able to get it in the range that you want. You're going to be able to get everything done. And also, I think it's just to match up with, like you previously mentioned, the type 1 buddy. Be familiar with your surroundings. Be familiar with your own health. Prioritize your health, and get done with your schooling.
Very cool. That's a really good one too, Jordan. Thank you. Natasha, what are some tips, tricks that you would share with our audience tonight?
I think I would say to just try and so when I was diagnosed in grade 9, so I was kind of like late diagnosis to most of the diabetics that I know. And for my whole first 2 years of high school, I didn't feel normal. Like the friends I was surrounded myself with in grade 9 weren't the best supporters of the disease. And so I had a hard time kind of feeling normal. And I think that is a shared reality for a lot of diabetics, just not feeling normal sometimes. And so I think in the situation we're in right now with online school, I think a lot of us and a lot of the people who aren't diabetic don't feel normal as well. So I think just like supporting each other and reaching out to each other and trying to find things that remind you that we're all going through this together and that what's happening right now is the new normal would be my advice.
Supporting each other, you're right, is a really important part. We are all in this together, and we can all support one another. And last but not least, Emerson.
I think the biggest takeaway I've even had just from first year alone is that you have to be very independent and you have to advocate for yourself, especially during a changing time like this. Making sure you're speaking up and getting what you need from profs, from the work, just making sure that you're putting yourself in a position for success, putting yourself first, not letting other people rely on you too much, and just making sure that you're doing what you need to make sure that it works out for you and benefits you in the end.
And great advice as well, Emerson. And I do want to add, as Emerson, you just talked about communicating with your professors. That is such an important part, especially dealing with a chronic illness. They sometimes don't understand. I know I had this issue in university, but just talk to them. They will understand. They are human just like all of us. And once you tell them and you let them know what is going on, they're very supportive. So Emerson, kudos to you for reaching out to your professors and letting them know so that they have your back. Especially now in a time like this, they are very supportive. They're trying their best. So just remember that when all your professors are maybe not so tech savvy, but they're learning. All right. Barbara?
No, I think this has been an amazing panel. Thank you for being amazing and being as great as you are. And, I think you've given some really wonderful nuggets of great information and positive reinforcement and for the viewers. I know that I'm really proud to be hosting this, and I wish you just all the best and wonderful future ahead, and just be patient, and you have so much ahead of yourselves, and just stay safe.
Exactly. And to quickly finish things off again, if there's anybody watching who wants to take part in our mentorship program, as Barbara and I mentioned, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to support all of you in your transition journey, sharing insights, resources. We also have resources, anything that we talked about tonight, with links. They are posted on our website, as well as some cool videos from University of Toronto and their Accessibility Services Department specifically. So if you want to check those out, head to our website. And if there's anything else that our panelists would like to add,
actually one thing that we forgot to mention, and that we talked about two different transitions. It was the school and the medical transition from adult care. Are all of you in adult care, or are you still in pediatrics?
I'm not an adult yet.
Adult.
Yes.
Sorry, Natasha. No. So Emerson, you are adult?
No, I'm actually in the middle of a transition right now. They let me stay a little bit longer.
Interesting.
You're an adult?
Yes, yeah. I was actually lucky because I turned 18 and transitioned into the adult program before I even went to university. So from there, it was kind of probably easier rather than navigating that while I'm at university. So that was good for me. It worked out well.
That's a good segue for next week, because we're talking to 4 clinicians, diabetes educators, and social workers about the transitioning piece. How many of the clinics are putting it on hold. They are allowing kids to stay until they're 19 years old because of the difficulty of transitioning to adult, physically, and many of them psychologically. So that's why I asked that question.
And Barbara, as you mentioned, that's a great segue in for next week. So for those of you watching, tune in next week to our part 3 of our 4-part series, Navigating Support Through Transition, Clinician Style. And we'll be featuring some clinicians next week, which will be really interesting.
So I think we're going to wrap it up. It's time.
It is time. So thank you all once again. And we do want to thank our sponsors again tonight, Omnipod, Aubrey and Marla Dan Foundation, Jeremy and Judith Friedman, as well as the esteemed DHF Board of Directors for making these webinars continue to be possible.
And we wish you safe and healthy future ahead, and we hope to be in touch with you in the near future to see how you guys are doing.
Exactly. So thank you everyone for joining us, and stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.